Sunny October morning in a cemetery. A dragonfly takes off from a tombstone. A surprising phenomenon as the larvae of the dragonflies develop in water, and the adults are also strongly connected to wetlands. But wetlands are particularly unsuitable for cemeteries. Cemetery dragonflies are mostly found sitting on the vegetation next to black tombstones, but occasionally they can also be seen on the surface of gravestones. But why do dragonflies like black gravestones? Hungarian scientists found out that the key to this mystery lies in a special property of the light reflected from the gravestone, which is invisible to the human eye but visible to various insects. This is a superpower which can be used, for example, to recognize a stream when searching for water. The special visual information has helped aquatic insects to survive for millions of years. But humans have begun to transform the physical environment so that the animals are receiving more and more false and often deadly signals. Light reflections from artificial surfaces, such as solar panels, asphalt roads, windows, dark cars, basically all shiny and dark objects, represent an ecological threat for billions of aquatic insects every day. Thus, the polarized world is slowly becoming a weapon of mass destruction all over the world. Polarized Adventures. I am György Kriska, a researcher at Eötvös Loránd University and at the Center for Ecological Research, Hungary. As a biologist, I study aquatic insects that are seriously threatened by anthropogenic changes of the optical environment. My colleague Adam Egri is an expert on insect vision. Adam uses his amazing talent to create special experimental equipment at the Ecological Research Center. These devices can reveal even the most hidden secrets of insects. Instead of laboratory work, he is now preparing a field experiment on the university campus to visualize one of the most striking light polarization phenomena in nature, the pattern of the clear sky. By rotating a linear polarizing filter in front of our eyes, parts of the sky are periodically darkened and brightened. If we take photographs of the sky with different orientations of the filter, it is possible to determine patterns of light polarization in the sky that are otherwise invisible to the human eye. If the light waves of a given wavelength only vibrate in one plane, then the light is linearly polarized. Linearly polarized light can be made perceptible to the human eye by a linear polarizing filter. When a polarizing filter is placed in the path of light, it will only let through a single plane of vibration of fully polarized light, which can be completely filtered out by a second polarizing filter with a perpendicular transmission direction. The spectacular phenomenon is illustrated for us by a senior member of our team, Gábor Horváth, professor at the Institute of Physics at Eötvös Loránd University, a world-renowned expert in environmental optics. Gábor developed the pioneering polarimetric imaging technique back in the early 1990s.
Igen, és itt nagyon jól látszik, hogy a zeniten átmegy naplementekor egy nagyon erősen poláros sáv.
With this method, the polarization patterns of our environment can be measured and visualized. An H-shaped pattern with its axis of symmetry passing exactly through the sun can be easily recognized in the figure that was created by processing the photographs taken through differently oriented filters. On a gloomy afternoon in May, I noticed a strange phenomenon. Moth-like creatures attacked the windows of the university as if their lives depended on getting into the building. A closer look at an uninvited guest reveals that they are not moths, but caddisflies. Caddisflies are aquatic insects developing in water as larvae. Many species use silk to make protective cases, strengthened with inorganic or organic debris. The caddisflies invading the glass buildings of the university originate from the Danube River. The larvae spend their days on the water bottom. Their mass presence means that they play an important role in the river's food web. At the end of their aquatic life, the larvae swim to the surface and molt into winged insects. Larval skins drifting on the water surface, and newly hatched insects are getting acquainted with life on land on the riverside stones. Then the caddisfly swarming begins. The insects which are about to mate gather around a highly visible landmark. The glass palace of the university works as a magnet. As the swarming progresses, building walls and ledges are covered with mating caddisflies in increasing numbers. Under natural conditions, females would fly back to the Danube River after mating and lay their eggs in the water. They are guided back to the river by a huge horizontally polarized light source, the Danube itself. But the caddisflies do not return to the river from the university buildings. Instead, they all land on the walls of the buildings at dusk. Counting the dark dots that represent the insects reveals that most of them are sitting on the black reflective surfaces and dark windows. To understand why this strange behavior is occurring, we need to find out how a caddisfly perceives the university building with its polarization-sensitive eyes. I take 3 photos of the building with different polarizing filter orientations. We then compute the polarization patterns of the building and visualize them using false color figures.
Itt lehet látni, itt a Duna, és 4 különböző irányból mértük az üvegpalotának a polarizációs mintázatát. Itt lehet látni az eredményt alul, és attól függő, hogy milyen irányból nézzük, néha vízszintesen poláros fényt ver vissza. Ilyenkor vízfelületnek tűnik ez az egyébként függőleges üvegtábla.
The darkest gray areas in the pattern of the degree of polarization indicate the highly polarized reflective parts of the building. And in the pattern of the direction of polarization, the brightest green and purple areas indicate horizontal polarization. The highly and horizontally polarized regions have the same characteristics as the river surface. The reason why the females preparing to lay eggs are landing on the dark glass surfaces of the building and staying there has now been revealed. This is a deceptive supernormal stimulus suppressing signals from the insect's other senses and traps the caddisflies. Urban birds are also aware of insect-attracting ability of glass buildings, so they prefer to feed on the walls during caddisfly swarming. In such cases, instead of searching insects on tree trunks, the great spotted woodpecker prefers to cling to the bricks stuffing its belly. After dusk, life in the big city picks up, but most caddisflies do not survive long enough to see it. Their carcasses cover the insect-killing glass buildings along the Danube River. How fortunate that aquatic insects can find refuge in the depths of forests and pristine wetlands. A huge mistake. Cities show no mercy. They grow killer tentacles in all directions. The tentacles of cities are the asphalt roads reflecting polarized light, which, like the body's vascular system, enmesh the whole Earth. Cars flow through the roads like blood cells in veins, but instead of oxygen, these veins deliver toxic gases and polar traps to every corner of our world. No one is bothered by a footpath running through the forest, but the asphalt roads that fragment habitats by crossing the landscape are a threat to wildlife. The pine chafer is not an agile creature, but sometimes it flies to explore the world. The nectar-sucking and pollen-eating rose chafer also prefers to fly. Unlike them, the longhorn beetle takes a long walk to reach the danger zone. Mesmerized by the unfamiliar environment, I can barely shake it out of its dangerous stupor. The clumsy scarab beetle quickly falls backwards, so now it can neither move forwards nor backwards. The horse wasp was busy building its nest a short time ago, but now it sniffs the asphalt in a daze. I might even find these strange insects' behaviors amusing, but in reality, these are terrible tragedies. More potential victims appear on the road: the caterpillar of the nine-spotted moth and the centipede. Drivers speeding along the forest road and cyclists riding through the hills have no idea that death reaps on their trail. The asphalt road attracts the scavengers by offering a feast, and then executes them too. The fate of the violet ground beetle can also be shared by the sex-obsessed European firebug, which mates and feeds at the same time. Terrestrial insects are in danger, but they are not the most endangered. The first place belongs to mayflies that live as larvae in water. They die by the thousands and become food for ants. But where did they come from? And what are these poor creatures doing here? The answer lies in the depths of the nearby stream. From above in winter, looking through the defoliated trees, we can see the strange duet of the stream and the nearby asphalt road. With the arrival of winter, only the moss-covered rocks along the creek are the mementos of the green summer. A few more weeks and the rushing water will hide under the ice, but the stream dwellers will go on with their lives as usual. The side swimmers are as naughty as ever. Meadow beetle larvae wandering around on the surface of the stone, and planarians glide along the substrate. The flat-headed mayflies are real fun characters. When a few of them get together, they immediately start partying. Unlike them, the thoughtful, prong-gilled mayfly larvae dazzle the stream audience with a magical dance. After the bitterly cold days, the stream comes to life again. More and more stonefly larvae with developed wing pads appear in the stream, and then the first winged specimens also appear alongside the stream bed. But not only there. The road alongside the stream attracts stoneflies that are unable to escape from the enchantment of the asphalt surface. This is also true for the king of the stream, the true stonefly. Its predatory larva lives its life as the lord of the water until the big day of transformation will come. An excellent molting place is a large stone protruding from the riverbed, or a bridge pillar. This is indicated by larval skins scattered around. His Majesty, the 4-centimeter insect wonder appears on the wall. So the wedding of the true stoneflies can begin. The smaller, nimble males and the slower females preparing to lay eggs both end up on the asphalt road. The females no longer react to external stimuli, so the finely decorated eggs do not reach the stream. There is already a serious loss to the wildlife of the stream, even though the mayfly swarming has not even started. But it is not far away. The first mayflies appear and they molt for the last time. The mayfly swarming above the stream is a real natural wonder. The world's perhaps most graceful insects ride a gentle breeze and wait for their lovers to dance together and mate. The ideal swarming location is characterized by the proximity of the stream, the open sky with females clearly visible against the background, and higher temperature to ensure prolonged mating. Unfortunately, these conditions are best met by an asphalt road running under the open sky, reflecting polarized light and warmed up by the sunshine. The green drake is the jewel of the mountain streams. Its larvae, which live in the sediment of the stream, appear on the surface just before their metamorphosis. Before laying eggs, mayfly females fly upstream along the stream. When they arrive to a bridge, instead of passing under it, they rise and fly on, following the line of the asphalt road that crosses the bridge. The asphalt road is depolarized by the white gravel rolled into its surface, which is why green drakes do not land on it, except when flying very low and the pothole filled with rainwater comes into view. However, they are more likely to fly over the road until a polarized light trap, such as a dark-colored car, causes them to land. The optical stimulus of the cars imitating water is so strong that landing females immediately lay their white eggs. All over the world, roads and cars are killing mayflies, which are also threatened by water pollution in large numbers. But is there nothing we can do about it? A simple solution comes to mind that might help green drakes at the local level. I try to get females to lay eggs where there is a chance of their survival. I place differently colored plastic trays on the side of the road and fill them with water. It is slowly getting dark. The first test subjects should be here any time now. The method seems to work. The first green drake lands in the black tray and starts laying eggs almost immediately. The mayflies see the red tray as black because their eyes do not perceive red wavelengths. Thus, unlike the light-colored control trays, the red one attracts green drakes as well. A well-functioning tray trap can save hundreds of thousands of eggs. Red trays are more visible on the roadside and therefore safer to use. When the swarming is complete, the tray traps are filled with dying green drakes. Eventually they all die, but with our help they can ensure the survival of their species. Polarized light pollution kills aquatic insects. But the question arises if there are artificial polarizing objects that can help the ecosystem. We do not have to go far to find the answer. We just need to take a trip to Lake Balaton. The largest lake in Central Europe covers 610 square kilometers and has an average depth of 3-4 meters. At 500 meters from the southern shore, the water depth is only 1.5 meters. The shallowness of the lake and the lower viscosity of the warming water cause waves to form quickly in windy conditions. Waves and longitudinal currents cause the bottom of Lake Balaton to become easily stirred up, which makes the water light-colored. Along the south coast, the water looks light-colored even when there is no wind, because the shallow water makes the sandy bottom visible everywhere. In this case, the horizontally polarized light reflected from the water surface is mixed with the vertically polarized light reflected from the bottom. The latter will reduce the degree of polarization of horizontally polarized light, making the water surface less attractive to aquatic insects seeking water. From deeper, darker waters, hardly any light reaches the surface, so the reflected horizontally polarized light attracts aquatic insects like a magnet. In general, the water on the southern shore of Lake Balaton is light-colored. But not everywhere. In the early spring, the bright waters of the Hungarian Sea turn pitch black in some harbors, and this temporary blackening only disappears by early summer. At the Balatonfenyves yacht harbor, the snow-white color of the hoods emphasizes the blackness of the water, which is in sharp contrast to the yellowish green of Lake Balaton. But what causes the mysterious color change? Perhaps some dangerous pollutant has accumulated, or harmful microorganisms are proliferating in the harbor water? Fortunately, neither. However, there is significant amounts of humic substances in the water, which is associated with an unparalleled richness of aquatic life. The mapping of the Balatonfenyves and Balaton-Máriafürde sites reveals that the humus-rich marsh waters from the mainland are responsible for the water darkening. These waters reach the harbors via channels crossing the wetlands of the Somogy landscape. The darkening of the lake is mostly observed at inlets where artificial structures, such as boat moorings surrounded by concrete walls, prevent the dark water from mixing with the water of Lake Balaton. The characteristic light intensity pattern in the water body is accompanied by a change in the reflected polarization pattern, which in turn affects the diversity of aquatic life. Insects that lay eggs in water detect the water by the polarized light reflected from the surface. But what does a polarization-sensitive aquatic insect see when it searches for a suitable egg-laying site in Lake Balaton? To answer this question, my colleagues are assembling a drone polarimeter. The device takes images of the scene with different polarizing filter orientations. From these pictures, we can create a false color image showing that the black inkwells of Lake Balaton reflect a strongly and horizontally polarized light, which attracts the aquatic insects irresistibly. Many non-biting midge larvae hatch from the eggs deposited on the water surface in the harbor. If they prosper, so do the predators that feed on them. The blood red worms are also successfully hunted by diving beetle larvae. From the pondweed jungle of the harbor, a young water spider sets off to raid the water bottom. After a successful hunt, it starts building a bell, because it can only feed inside it. However, its construction is too close to the bottom, and it takes several attempts to drag the huge prey into the bell. Large larvae of dragonflies and beetles also like to hunt small game, but they will also prey on each other to satisfy their bottomless hunger. In dark water harbors, a diverse fauna flourishes, which results in good water quality and high ecological status. If we want to see a truly eye-catching wonder, we should continue to the mouth of the Zola River. The Zola is a true Hungarian river. It originates on the western border of the country and ends its adventure at Lake Balaton. Meandering along the border between Zola and Somogy counties, it gathers the pitch-black marsh waters of the surrounding area. And then it paints a magical picture with its black ribbon penetrating into the light-colored lake water. During our trip to Lake Balaton, in addition to learning about the background of a strange optical phenomenon, we found a positive example of polarized light pollution. Thus, we can state that the artificial alternation of natural polarization patterns can, in exceptional cases, even cause beneficial changes in the ecosystem. Large, shiny black patches that reflect polarized light can also form on land. Whether they appear out of carelessness, like ash fields of burned stubble, or they are constructed like solar panel farms, they can well be fatal for water-seeking flying aquatic insects. Yes, in principle there is a chance. But to reveal the truth, scientific studies are needed. Nowadays, with the spread of environmentally conscious farming, only accidental fires set the fields ablaze. This kills the soil's diverse ecosystem, destroys the humus that stores plant nutrients, and poisons the air with smoke. Even with rapid intervention, large areas can be consumed by fire and turn into black ash fields in a matter of seconds. It is even more dangerous if the accidental fire occurs during harvesting. In this case, a raging firestorm can develop as the wheat ready for harvest and the uncollected straw bursts into flames, which can spread to neighboring extensive monocultures. In this case, the fire must be extinguished, the crop harvested, the straw collected, and the stubble plowed up simultaneously to prevent the fire from spreading. But is the black ash field really that dangerous for aquatic insects? Let's take a closer look at how straw turns into ash to find out the truth. Due to the random orientation of the straw when burned, they form a coarse ash layer that reflects polarized light with different vibrational planes. Thus, the black ash fields do not trap flying aquatic insects, as they are only attracted by the near horizontal polarized light. This is indeed reassuring news for the insects, but scientists cannot sit back and relax. They need to find out the truth about another source of polarized light that is expanding worldwide: the solar farms. Are aquatic insects endangered or not? Due to the importance of the case, Gabor's entire drone team sets into action. Nothing is left to chance. After lengthy preparations, they send their wonder weapon, the all-seeing drone polarimeter, into battle. The flying device rises above the action area and maps the entire optical environment of the solar farm. Unfortunately, the detailed study do not provide comforting information. The huge solar panels reflect strongly and horizontally polarized light. Measurements suggest there is a realistic risk that solar farms have a fatal effect on polarotactic aquatic insects. After discussing the critical results, the team decides that before painting the devil on the wall, they should consult the aquatic insects themselves about solar panels. My interviewee is the already familiar green drake. Let's head to the pilot site, the Bükkös stream. I am investigating the attraction of insects to two solar panels near the swarming site of the green drake. The old panel design has a homogeneous reflective surface, while the newer is divided into smaller cells by a white metal grid. Along with the runners, the first aquatic insects appear next to the homogeneous dark solar panel and land on it. Poor green drakes are unable to get away from the surface reflecting horizontally polarized light. This is very sad news. It seems that the devastating drone polarimetry results are confirmed by the entomological studies. But there are some good news too. The modern grid pattern panel does not attract any insects other than a few cicadas. Perhaps the grid pattern is the reason. I shall try to find it out. I make gridded polarizing test surfaces with different grid density. By comparing their attractiveness to aquatic insects, I can get an answer. The large black surfaces attract masses of mayflies and even trap one or two true stoneflies. Most mayflies are so mesmerized by the polarized light that they only fly away when poked. The experiments show that the denser the white grid pattern on the test surface, the better it is avoided by aquatic insects. They do not lay their eggs here and do not perish on its surface. This is very good news, because in modern solar panels the individual cells are separated by metal strips. Thus, the polarizing surface is divided by the non-polarizing grid into small parts that no longer attract aquatic insects. Therefore, unlike asphalt roads, solar farms using modern panels do not trap aquatic insects. An unexpected event occurs at the solar panels placed on the bridge. A horsefly appears. Following the surprising phenomenon, we are moving to a new location. We head towards farms and pastures, where armies of blood-sucking horseflies attack in the scorching summer. The first horsefly soon appears at the solar panels. It circles around the homogeneous dark solar panel and lands on its surface. Maybe it is looking for water to drink or bath, so it repeatedly touches the panel that reflects horizontally polarized light. It does not understand how the water can disappear, while it is seemingly just right there. A dragonfly is also interested in the fake water surface, but the panel pond is too small, so it quickly flies away. Like dragonflies, horseflies are also aquatic insects. Their larvae have well-developed climbing bumps and live in the sediments of water bodies. Their females suck the blood of warm-blooded animals and humans, spreading pathogens of serious diseases. Their presence is a severe curse on the whole world. That is why it would be a great achievement if we could find a clever way to get rid of them. Gabor and I are thinking big, so we are creating a real high-tech device, a solar horsefly slicer. The bait part of the trap is the solar panel itself, which reflects horizontally polarized light and attracts horseflies. The produced electricity powers a motor, which spins a wire to slaughter the bloodsuckers. The Salender farm in Göd, near Budapest, is an ideal place to try out the solar slicer. The device has eliminated many horseflies, but we need a simpler solution for the not-so-rich horse owners. We decide to further develop the water tray method, which has already proven successful for mayflies. The preliminary experiments are promising. The black and red rays are also attracting horseflies. Now all we must do is get them captured. So we create the prototype of the oily horsefly trap. We layered some oil on the top of the water to catch the horseflies, and we also installed an overflow pipe which drains the extra water when raining.
Hát ebből ezret
Ilyenből biztos, hogy vennének 10-15.
This is an outstanding prototype, but unfortunately it did not become a product. Therefore, the horsekeepers of the Salender farm are trying to substitute it with makeshift traps. The principle is similar, so the outcome is also similar: mass destruction of horsefly swarms. It almost seems that we have found the best solution to the horsefly problem, but an unexpected observation gives a new direction to our research. On our dark-colored cars, female horseflies appear not only on the water-mimicking surfaces that reflect horizontally polarized light, but also on the parts that reflect polarized light in other vibrational planes. In addition, horseflies behave very differently here than on the solar panel. Instead of just touching the surface, they stay put for a long time. From what we have seen, it looks like that the cars attract hungry female horseflies by mimicking the host animals with the reflected strongly polarized light. If we observe the dark brown and the very light-colored horses in a horsefly-infested pasture, we will notice a striking difference. The blood-sucking horseflies attack the dark horses much more intensively than the light ones. Observation can be easily quantified by counting the blood-sucking harassers on photos taken of horses. A horsefly in search of a host will not attack a white horse reflecting unpolarized light, but will instead target strongly polarized dark horses. Horses of darker color are also more exposed to attacks by horseflies for another reason. Gábor wants to demonstrate this with a barrel experiment.
Hogy evolúció során nem véletlen, hogy a bögyök mindig napsütésben és többnyire a fekete lovakat szeretik.
However, the presentation has some uninvited contributors. The heightened scientific interest of our equine friends is truly touching. After they chew his favorite straw hat, Gábor ends the professional collaboration. In his field experiment, he uses 2 pairs of black barrels. They look identical, but one pair is filled with cold water. During the experiment, he records the time spent on cold and warm barrels by the horseflies and how easy it is to catch them. The result is clear. Insects stay on cold barrels much longer and are easier to catch than horseflies that have landed on warm barrels. The coat of dark-colored horses warms up much more in sunshine than that of light-colored ones. Therefore, the horseflies landing on a warmer coat and endangered by the self-defense reactions of the horses can fly away faster due to their warmer wing muscles. This gives them a better chance of survival than those landing on white horses. In the light of recent results, the traps we have created can be improved, as the solar slicer and the rainproof tray only trap horseflies looking for water or preparing to lay eggs, but not the ones in search for blood. Inspired by the results, we create the sticky horsefly paper based on the sticky fly paper. The device is composed of a horizontal and a vertical glossy blackboard with a transparent sticky foil in front of them. The horizontal element imitates water, while the vertical one imitates a host animal, attracting horseflies with polarized light. So we have developed a device that catches both male and female horseflies. The flypaper rolls of the trap allow the surface to be renewed if it gets covered with insect carcasses. Despite their simplicity and high effectiveness, these horsefly traps have not yet become widespread. Instead, owners are still trying to protect their most valuable livestock with a special clothing called fly rug. Horses running around in custom-made dresses are now a common sight in pastures. These animals are often forced to tolerate clothing that also covers their heads, otherwise they would be subjected to relentless attacks by horseflies. We already know that the certain optical characteristics of a horse cloth are very important. Unlike shiny and black surfaces, bright and matte ones do not reflect strongly polarized light, thus do not attract blood-seeking horseflies. Looking at the solar panel next to the pasture, we are reminded that zebras, giraffes or Nyala antelopes discovered effective optical protection against bloodsuckers millions of years ago. The striped and graded patterns of their bodies, similar to a modern solar panel, divide the polarized surface into smaller areas that are no longer attractive. In fact, we can notice that zebras protect their heads and legs, their most important body parts, with the densest striping. One of the practical results of these discoveries is the zebra striped horse dress, with which we would like to dress up a lucky horse at the Saarländer farm as a crowning achievement of our research. The zebra striped dress arrives at the perfect time. It's a truly touching moment, but we are happy to get some help due to the gaps in our knowledge regarding horse handling. The disappointed giant horsefly is out for revenge, but luckily we are on our guard. The horsefly problem is solved, so we can move on to the next adventure. Rivers are the main source of drinking water for humanity. This is why it is important to preserve their natural state, in which aquatic insects play a key role. Among them, the most endangered are mayflies, as shown by gigantic insect apocalypses. These are the result of new optical challenges in the polarized world, and the wrong way mayflies respond to the changes. Exploring the underlying reason is essential to solve the problem. Our study subjects are two mayfly species, the Tissa mayfly and the Danube mayfly. The Tissa mayfly was once common throughout Europe in the middle and the lower course of rivers. Today, its range is limited to the Tissa River basin and a few smaller rivers. Tissa mayfly larvae are yellowish-white creatures that live in the sediment. They use their strong mandibles and digging feet to bore holes in the substrate. At the end of their 3-year development, in a warm summer afternoon, they swim up to the surface and molt into winged insects. After hatching, males molt once more on the shore into a mature imago. The females can mate immediately after emerging from the larval skin, but they drift like tiny sails on the river surface for a long time before they take their mating flight. Unlike the Tisza mayfly, the swarming of the Danube mayfly that flies out of the Danube and other smaller rivers begins after dark. First, the males fly ashore and, like the Tisza mayfly, molt into an adult insect. They then hurry over the river to find love. But even in the rush, caution is advised, as hungry frogs lurk on the shore. At the Tisza River, the second stage of swarming begins with the flight of the Tisza mayfly females. The insects fly into the whirlwind of swarming, then form huge clouds and begin their compensatory flight. They fly upstream for a few kilometers above the river, then land on the water to lay their eggs. The drifting seedlings return to the clay pads suitable for larval development to ensure the emergence of the new generation. During their flight, the females follow the horizontally polarized light reflected from the river surface, so they do not even accidentally fly over land. Unfortunately, they are held up by bridges crossing their path, even though they could fly under or over them. The phenomenon is caused by the interruption of the continuous horizontally polarized signal that the Tisza mayflies have been following until now. On the day we arrived, there was a promising preliminary swarming of the Tisza mayfly, so I expect that tomorrow we will see a real mass swarming. The next day, I am on the water, watching the action at close range. As time goes by, the swarming gets more and more intense, and the main swarming begins. After a while, the females head for the bridge, and I join them. Following my prediction about the scale of today's swarming, crowds of spectators are already waiting on the bridge. Fortunately, I have not disappointed anyone. Female mayflies arrive at the bridge by the tens of thousands. Even though only a few mayflies can rise to the sufficient height to catch sight of the river on the other side and follow it again, thus pass through the optical barrier. Fortunately, trapped females can eventually lay their eggs in the river, so the Tisza mayfly population is not in danger because of the bridge. Females of the Danube mayflies also stop at the bridges, for the same reason as we saw with the Tisza mayfly. But there is a fatal difference, which leads to the death of millions of mayflies. The tragic outcome is because the swarming of the Danube mayfly reaches its peak only after complete darkness. At this time of day, the street lights on the bridges are already on, so the light from the lamps attracts the mayflies that are therefore jammed at the bridge. Insects flying onto the bridge become victims of a double ecological trap. Some of them lay their eggs on the asphalt surface, which reflects the horizontally polarized light and thus imitates water, while others are mesmerized by the irresistible light. The massacre can be prevented by installing a mayfly protecting light barrier. We tested a prototype on a bridge over the Rába River. Despite the simplicity of our device, it worked perfectly. Thus, after the successful preliminary test in 2019, for the first time ever, a mayfly protecting light barrier was installed on the Danube Bridge in Tohitótfalu. The result has been internationally recognized by researchers and conservationists working on light pollution. The device consists of two blue light lamps mounted on the two bridge piers. They project their light downstream, thus directly affecting the female mayflies flying upstream and reaching the bridge. Mayflies are mainly attracted to blue and ultraviolet light, so these lights can counteract the attractiveness of the street lights on the bridge. The Danube mayflies stay above the river and lay their eggs in the water, which can save the next generation. The starting date of the Danube mayfly swarming varies from year to year. So we need some help from local conservationists to find out when to switch on the blue lights on the bridge.
Földön túli jelenés a Szentendrei Duna ághídján.
In addition to the architectural values of the town, the people of the picturesque Szentendre also appreciate and protect the unique natural values of the Danube River. Thus, our awareness-raising event with film screening is more than welcomed. Together with the conservationists, we will start to survey the larvae in the nearby Ipoly River to determine the beginning of the swarming. The Ipoly is a gravel-bed lowland river that originates in Slovakia and flows into the Danube in Hungary. In the summer it is mostly shallow, making it easy to wade on foot. An outside observer might think we are panning gold as we collect mayfly larvae from the sediment. The mass occurrence of larvae with dark wing pads just about the metamorphose suggests that we are in the last moment before swarming. A few days later, we are also in action on the Danube with the conservationists from Pócsmegyer, a village that is pretty close to the bridge. But we only find lava skins, which indicates that the mayflies have already started the swarming here. The blue lights on the bridge piers in Tohitótfalu will be switched on to protect the Danube mayfly in the river section under the bridge from now until September. On a quiet evening in August, I suddenly see a mass of larva skin floating on the Danube. This is a clear indication that the gigantic swarming has already begun. Today, the mayfly protecting light barrier is facing an extraordinary challenge, but will it be able to cope with it? Thousands of females are constantly arriving at the blue lights on the bridge piers. The trapped masses of mayflies form gigantic insect clouds which, once they touch the river, scatter the egg-laying females by the thousands over the water surface. Fortunately, Adam's effectiveness tests clearly show that the light barrier performs excellently even under the high load. But at around 10, an unexpected event occurs. At the street lights on the bridge, mayflies begin to gather. I can only find out the reason for this surprising phenomenon up on the bridge.
A kérészvédő fénysorompó jól működik, arról az oldalról nem jönnek a kérészek, a másik oldalról viszont, tehát a Duna azon szakaszáról, ahonnan már tovább kellene haladni, tömegesen jönnek föl a hídra.
The collective suicide is caused by the abnormal downstream flight of females, which can only occur during exceptionally large swarming. In this case, the mayflies arrive at the bridge from upstream and thus do not encounter the protective lights that otherwise would keep them above water. The situation on the bridge is becoming increasingly worrying. Humans passing by are watching the phenomenon with mixed emotions. Now we can get an impression on how a swarming would look like without the light barrier. However, the problem is not limited to the bridges, but can also be observed along the shore of the Danube. At the ferry port of Pócsmegyer, a single LED light is killing thousands of Danube mayflies every day. The eggs laid overnight dry out on the shore in minutes, making it pointless to return them to the Danube. Locals have repeatedly asked for lights to be switched off after service hours, but have fallen on deaf ears. So night after night, the fragile insects become decomposing organic waste and wasp food. The people of Szentendre organize a nighttime boat parade to keep the egg-laying Danube mayflies above the river with their lamps. The mayfly rescue operation starts with an improvised scientific lecture on the banks of the Danube.
Jó esetben mindegyik teljesen elgyengül, beleputtyan a vízbe, és akkor lerakja a tetét.
The enthusiasm is enormous. The free places for canoes are sold out in no time. Meanwhile, the canoes and their captains from the local sport club also arrive. It is slowly getting dark. Now, by using a bright light, I can find out if there are any mayflies over the river at all. The first specimens are arriving. So, it is time to prepare for action. In the thickening darkness, concern replaces initial enthusiasm. And only the most determined are willing to take part in the rescue mission. The next test indicates many mayflies above the river.
A nőstények még azért kevesebben vannak, de azok tudnak igazán nagy rajokat alkotni. Tehát látszik a vedés az ujjamon. Most fog előjönni a szárnya néhány más.
Fortunately, nothing can deter the hardcore conservationists from their noble task, and the world's first canoeing Danube mayfly rescue mission begins. On the night of the Szentendre mission, interesting things are happening in Budapest. The masses of Danube mayflies that piled up in front of the Margaret Bridge was blown into the city by the strong winds. The insects have also invaded the underpass, causing great distress among the pedestrians. The mayflies are lost in the urban environment, with no one to rescue them. Is the situation any better in Szentendre? Fortunately, the success here exceeds all expectations. Among our boat-mounted lights, even the dimmer ones can keep larger mayfly swarms above the water and trigger the egg-laying. The participants of the action have been rewarded with an experience of a lifetime. On the shore and on the water, they have witnessed a unique natural wonder. They also help to preserve the beautiful jewel of the river, the Danube mayfly. Our adventures in the polarized world have come to an end. So it is time to say goodbye to my scientist friends. But I know very well that I can always meet them in the summer sunshine deep in a sunflower field or in the middle of the night on a glowing asphalt road. Always while the dawning light of science illuminates the hidden secrets of our dark world.